Hello everyone, welcome back. I did one of these a few weeks ago. I have another cube to look at though, so we're going to be talking about this cube. This is my Winston drafting cube. These videos are unscripted. They are just meant for some background noise. I'll be reading all the cards aloud. There's no visualization needed for this video. You can just listen to it in the background. But there's some elements here for people who do have this on main monitor, mostly the enrichment deer for you psychos that are watching this as main monitor content, as well as whatever music I'm listening to because it helps me speak better. So this is a Winston cube. Winston is a very interesting kind of way to cube. So I'll be going in how to do that, but also this can support a 4-player draft. For those that don't know, by the way, cube is a build your own kind of limited set where I took a bunch of cards and mashed them together and you draft it like a set. You build packs out of this and then you draft it. But Winston's a bit different. You don't make packs. You have a pile of 90 cards shuffled randomly from all the options in the cube, and you draft from that pile of 90 with one other person. And then you can also draft 5 packs of 9 normally with this cube. And the cube link will be in the description below if you want to play it.
Hello, Elk from the future here. Seeing as you're probably falling asleep to this video right now, bear with me for a second as I talk about today's sponsor, that being Manta Sleep Masks. Manta Sleep Masks are some of the best quality sleeping masks out there in terms of comfort and feel, thanks to its adjustability and ergonomic design. Normally, I'd be fidgeting with uncomfortable earbuds in bed on top of a normal sleeping mask, but Manta has a solution with their integrated speakers and their Manta sound masks. You can listen to music, audiobooks, white noise, this video. I find that it helps me get the restful sleep I need, especially during travel. Trust me, your sleep is worth it. Get yours down below or from mantasleep.com and use code 33ELK at checkout to get 10% off your order. Thank you so much, Manta, for sponsoring this video.
So this is what a Winston draft will kind of look like here. You'll have 3 face-down piles, and the first player will look at the first face-down pile and see, in this case, Wardens of the Cycle. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature died this turn, choose one. You gain 2 life, or you draw a card and you lose 1 life. This isn't actually a card in my cube. I'm just doing this for illustrative purposes. Anyway, this is a black-green card. It's kind of narrow, so I don't want it. What we're going to do is we're going to move to the battlefield flipped, the top card of the pile, and put it on top of this card. Next, Bloodgift Demon. Okay, we're a little bit better. This is an evasive threat that gives us value over time. Still not too keen on it, so move this to the battlefield flipped as well. We'll skip this pile as well. Thraben Charm. This is a very good card. It's removal, it's Grave Hate, perfect card. It's very flexible, so we'll take this card and we'll make a new pile here with the top card of the library. Now, the next player, your opponent, now drafts. They look at this first pile of 2 cards. It's Wardens of the Cycle and Felia. Well, okay, they want that one because they do like Felia. So they'll take both of those and then they'll flip this one. This is a double face card, Sorin, but you know what I mean. This would be face down in a sleeve. And then you would go again. You would see Sorin and go, do I want Sorin? Well, it goes with Thraben Charm. We can do like a white-black deck, but I think I'll skip Sorin. So you put a new card face down. And then you look at Bloodgift Demon, Telling Time. You go, aha, okay, great, I will take that. And then boop, move to battlefield flipped. If you ever get to the end here and you pass all the piles, you just get the top card of the drafting pile. So that's the generic idea of what a Winston cube is all about. It's a very fun way to draft. I recommend everyone try it. You can do it with booster packs too. So you can do it with 3 packs, which is a total of 90 cards in that pile, right? So I don't really have a primer for this one like I did with the 2-headed giant cube, which you should go watch if you enjoyed this video. So I think what we're going to do is just start with the multicolor archetypes and then work our way out from there to the single color sort of stuff we have going on, as well as the lands. And in fact, I think I'm going to review the lands in addition to the archetypes because unlike my other cubes where I do full cycles of the lands and they're all the same cycle, here the cycles of lands actually tie into what the colors are doing as best as I can. We're also going to notice a lot of unknown event cards as well as Mystery Booster 2 playtest cards. So I'll make sure extra to read those out for you guys to listen to because I have a lot of them. And this is mostly what I built the cube to do is be a good home for these cards. So let's start with Azorious, which is Flicker, of course. We have Yorion. I love Companion. We have a white border Yorion in here. If your deck has 20 more than the maximum cards deck size, then you get to Companion it. Flying. When it enters the battlefield, exile any number of non-land permanents you own, return them. So, of course, we're going to see a lot of white cards like Charming Prince that can reflicker that Yorion, stuff like that. Kaikar, Zephyr Awakener. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you choose one. You either create a spirit with flying or you exile another creature controller and you return it. So just repeatable flicker engine here whenever you cast a spell. And then we have Reflector Mage, a very good flicker target. Whenever it enters, you bounce a creature. They can't cast creatures with the same name as that creature until your next turn. Super brutal. It practically puts it on top, except they still do draw the card, but they can't recast it, is the big deal. So, Azorious, we have Celestial Colonnade and Razortide Bridge to go with this. Why? Razortide Bridge is mostly just for fixing. It's more for the Bant lands or Jeskai lands archetype that has a little bit of Delirium kicking around. Sadly, there's not a good flickering land. Otherwise, that would be in. And then Celestial Colonnades for a more controlling posture of white-blue deck. You're typically going to be on 3 colors in a Winston draft. So looking at these Azorious flicker cards, like you're going to be on a flicker deck somewhat, but you're going to be probably like Jeskai or Esper. And that Celestial Colonnade will be a very good finisher for those kinds of decks. Next up, we have Dimir. Sneaky Snacker. You can see that this is marked as a possible cut. The card I'm considering cutting this for is a card called Diabolic Vision, I believe it's called, where it just lets you look at the top 5 cards of your library, and then you can put any number of those in your graveyard, or you put 1 in your hand and the rest on top of your library in any order. That's to enable Miracle, and there's a lot of Miracle cards in Dimir. So next up, we have Thief of Sanity. This is one of my favorite includes in cubes. It is a 3-mana 2/2 flyer. Already just like, okay, it's a Windrake. But whenever it does combat damage to a player, you look at the top 3 cards of that player's library, exile one of them face down, then put the rest into your graveyard. For as long as that card remains exiled, you may look at it, cast it, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast that spell. So the big thing with Thief of Sanity here is not fitting the Dimir archetype, which is actually mostly Reanimator in this cube. But the big thing with Thief of Sanity is if I play this cube with someone, they're never going to play it again, and they're in Dimir. Thief of Sanity lets them see more of the cube because they get to play with my cards, right? Next up, we have Atris, Oracle of Half-Truths. This works really well in an Esper Flicker deck, but it also works really well with Reanimator, right? It is a Factor Fiction, kind of. Fills up your graveyard, which is very handy for those Reanimator decks. And once again, I just favor cards with weird printings for this cube. We're going to see a lot of weird printings like this art here. Next up is Kalain, Reclusive Painter. So the Rakdos theme is Treasure, and this is something I really like to do in Winston cubes because you only see 90 of the cards in the whole cube. So you're ending up on a lot of colors because you see so little of the cube. And what that means is you're typically 3 color, and when you're Mardu, that's a big bummer because green has really good fixing. But if red-black is treasures, then these 3 colors of Magic have good fixing. And what that means is when these 3 colors of Magic have good fixing, no matter what 3-color combo you're in, you're always going to have black, green, or red, which means you'll have fixing, which is why I love Rakdos Treasure as a theme in Winston Draft. So yeah, here we have Kalain. When she enters, you make a treasure. Other creatures enter the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on them for each mana from a treasure spent to cast them. So you can make huge creatures. If you have 4 treasures laying around, that creature gets +4/+4 when you cast it with those treasure. Next up is Mahadi, Emporium Master. This is actually a possible cut from this cube. Mahadi works really well in Commander, where you like Blasphemous Mahadi, and then you make a million treasure. In cube, it's a little bit slow for my liking. So this one might actually come out for a different Rakdos card. I'm not sure what Rakdos card, but I'm open to suggestions. And then we have Mayhem Devil. Of course, works really well with Treasure, because whenever you sack a treasure, you get to ping something. Moving on. We have Gruul, which is a ramp. So we have Goblin and Archmancer. Each spell you cast that's red or green has 1 less to cast. Is 1 less to cast, rather. Dire Strain Rampage. 1 red, green. Destroy target artifact, enchantment, or land. If a land was destroyed this way, its controller may search the library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. So we have versatile removal. You can blow up an artifact or enchantment. Or you can blow up your own land, right, and then ramp 2. So very good ramp card for Gruul. And then on the top end, we have Borborygmos Enraged. Love Bobo here. Bobo is really fun with these Gruul ramp strategies because you can run a lot of lands in your deck. You can maybe even go above 17 lands to about 18, especially if you have MDFCs in your deck. You might even go to 19 lands. And with Bobo, what you can do is after turbo ramping, you can slam him. He's a giant 7/6 trampler. You attack, you mulch, right, with his combat damage trigger. But then you just like have a handful of lands. You just go discard a land card, deal 3, discard a land card, deal 3, discard a land card, deal 3. Really brutal top end for any Gruul ramp strategy. All right, next up we have Selesnya. And Selesnya is +1/+1 counters in this cube, I'm pretty sure. It's a pretty loose one for Selesnya, but I just kind of included cards I like. So we have Knight of the Reliquary. It's +1/+1 for each land card in a graveyard. And then you can sacrifice a forest or plains. There's a big lands theme throughout this cube that we'll be seeing shortly, and Knight is just a really fun card to play with in that lands theme. Better than White in this cube because there isn't really a dedicated sack theme outside of maybe like Rakdos kind of. So I do like Knight of the Reliquary. Cutsil, Malamet Exemplar, just a very strong card. 3 mana, 3/3. Silences your opponent during your turn, and then You know, whenever you have a creature with a counter dealing damage, you draw cards and stuff. Also works with Knight of the Reliquary too, because it gets a buff for each land card in your graveyard. Yasharn is our last one. This is just mostly to counter treasure and some other sack stuff going on throughout the cube. I like having these fun little hate bears kicking around that you have to remove. Little removal check for the Rakdos player. Next up, we have Orzhov, and Orzhov is mostly built around Lurrus. Orzhov is actually the dedicated aristocrats kind of color here, but they're mostly built around weenies, so double spelling, right? I wanted to enable Lurrus as best as I could, so we're going to see a lot of low mana value things throughout the cube. Lurrus is, of course, companion requirement, requiring you to have a deck of only mana value 2 or less permanents, but then you can cast 2 or less permanents from your graveyard with Lurrus in play. Banalish Sleeper is one of these 2 or less permanents you can cast with Lurrus repeatedly. And then Fira is a really good counter plan where, like, if you don't open Lurrus in the 90, that's still okay because your cards are cheap enough that you get to double spell with Fira, right? So Orzhov is little weenies. That's the theme here. Next up is Izzet, which is going to be Spellslinger spells. Pretty simple theme for Izzet here, but we have Bloodwater Entity, which can set up miracles by putting instants or sorceries from your graveyard on top of your library, and then it's just a prowess threat. Pauper Cube All-Star here. Fire Ice is up next. Just really enjoy this card. It's very versatile, right? If you're Rakdos Treasure, you get to play fire, even if you're not blue. But Izzet decks get to make the most of this. Next up is Rouse Storm Conduit. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, does 1 damage to target opponent or planeswalker. +2 to scry 1, but you can also -2 to copy your next instant or sorcery spell. Rouse also kind of on the chopping block here. I do feel like he's a little bit slow, especially without any big instants or sorceries really in the cube to copy. All right, next up is Golgari. Golgari is going to be graveyard value, delirium kind of deck. And up first, we have Grim Flayer. This is a 2 mana 2/2 with trample. And when it does combat damage to someone, you surveil 3. And then delirium, it gets +2/+2, so it becomes a 4/4, right? So harder to block, and you can get that surveil every turn. This is a very good enabler for graveyard decks. Mosswood Dread Knight's up next. I love these flexible cards in this cube so much because, once again, you're always on 3 colors and you're not always seeing the whole cube. So even if you're mono green, a 2 mana 3/2 trampler is like not the end of the world. If you're mono black, a cantrip, it sucks. Let's be frank, it sucks. But it's like not the worst thing in the world. But of course, Golgari is going to use this card the best, where you can be casting this from the graveyard, a repeatable, grindy engine. Lastly, of Worm Harvest. Worm Harvest is here mostly because I love Dakmor Salvage, and Dakmor Salvage is in my cube, so this is the first of many retrace cards we're going to see to utilize Dakmor Salvage as sort of a engine. Worm Harvest here makes a worm for each card in your graveyard, land card in your graveyard for 5 mana, and you can retrace, which means you can discard a land card to cast it. Of course, Dakmor Salvage is a land, enters the battlefield taps for a black, but it has Dredge 2, so you can Dredge 2 to put it back into your hand instead of drawing a card. So that's a pretty nasty loop where you just make worms every turn with Worm Harvest. Next up, we have Boros, which is super go-wide aggro. We have Flage, Titan of Fire's Fury. There's a lot of Grave Hate in the cube. I really wanted a lot of cards that worked with the graveyard just because I love the second-handness of the graveyard. So Flage is one of those things, even though it is very strong, right? There's a lot of power outliers in this cube, but that's part of the fun. It's very quick to draft, and then you play one game, and then you put it away, you go again. So power spikes like this are not too crazy. Next up is War Leader's Call. What I like about War Leader's Call is a Impact Tremors kind of effect, is it works retroactively. So it's an anthem. Creatures you control get +1/+1. So the creatures you already played get buffed, but also future creatures not only get that buff, but they also ping your opponent to make a clock. Comet Stellar Pup is also in Boros. This is fitting the go wide theme. It makes 2 squirrels sometimes, but also it can dome people with the 4 or 5. And then the 3 fits really well with the Lurrus. There's a bunch of 2-drops. Return a card with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to your hand. So all in all, I really like the explosiveness of Comet. It's really funny. It makes very memorable games, even though it is very, very annoying to have cast aside, like cast across the table from you. Moving on, we have Simic. Simic's theme is lands, but specifically land animation is the major theme of Simic here. So we have Planar Genesis, just a ramp spell, but it can also be a impulse. Slowgurk the Overslime, 1 green/blue. Whenever a land is put in your graveyard from anywhere, you put a counter on Slowgurk. You remove 3 counters from Slowgurk to return it to its owner's hand. And when Slowgurk enters the battlefield, return up to 3 target land cards from your graveyard to your hand. And lastly, we have Tatyova, Steward of Tides. I really like this Tatyova so much. Turns Flood into late game murdering. It's very fun. Land creatures you control have flying. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, if you control 7 or more lands, up to 1 target land you control becomes a 3/3 elemental with haste. It's still a land. So we see all of these themes, by the way, reflected in the 2-color lands, like I mentioned earlier, and I forgot to keep mentioning it. Creeping Tar Pit and Waterlogged Teachings for Dimir. Doesn't really fit the Reanimator theme, but once again, this is mostly for Esper. like the Celestial Colonnade up here is. Rakdos is very aggressive. Treasures. So we have Blackleaf Cliffs, which enters untapped if it's very early in the game. Jagged Barrens, which pings your opponent when it enters. Gruul is a ramp. So we have Grove of the Burnwillows, Carpulsion Forest. These are actually here for producing colorless mana, which is important for some Eldrazi. We're going to see throughout this, like sowing Mycospawn and stuff. But also Grove of the Burnwillows, of course, enables Punishing Fire, which is in the cube. You make tap, add red or green, each opponent gains 1 life. Great news. Punishing Fire. Whenever an opponent gains life, you may pay red. If you do, return from your graveyard to your hand, and then it's a shock. So you can grind out opponents that way too. Selesnya, Horizon Canopy. Just a nice little cycling land here. Nothing too special. But Strength of the Harvest as well. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each creature in enchantment control, which kind of fits the Selesnya theme of buffing. Next up is Orzhov. We have our first playtest card here with Lazotep Archway. Enters the battlefield tapped. You can tap to add a white or a black, but you can also eternalize it from your graveyard. So for 3 white black, you exile this land from your graveyard and you make a 4/4 zombie creature and it loses all other card types, but it still has the ability to tap for white or black, which is really funny. It still enters tapped though, but very funny. You can make a 5-mana 4/4 if you ever discard this or sacrifice it or whatever. Orzhov Basilica. This is just for value and whatnot. It's mostly because also Orzhov is a very slow archetype here, more controlling. All right, moving on to Izzet. This is the funniest 2-card pairing. I'll start with Value Town. It is a land with an adventure. So the adventure half is Take a Trip 2, which is draw 2 cards. It does 2 damage to each opponent. And then it's an Izzet tap land as the adventurer part. Then we have Izzet Boilerworks, which is a bounce land. So what you can do is late game, you can take a trip to Value Town, and then you Izzet Boilerworks the Value Town back to your hand on the next turn to get even more value from Value Town. Classic Izzet made shit here. Next up is Golgari. We have Festering Thicket. Cycling 2. This works really, really well with Life from the Loam, right? So you cycle this, you dredge Loam for 3, and then you cast Loam, you get back the Festering Thicket, 2 other lands, and then you cycle the Festering Thicket, you dredge 3 Loam, right? This is a value loop with Loam, cycling lands. And then we also have Restless Cottage, which is just good grave hate. Very important in a cube like this, which is very graveyard heavy. And next up, Boros. We're very aggro once again. So we have Restless Bivouac. It attacks, it puts a counter on a creature you control, it becomes an Ox, right? It's a man land that just kills your opponent. And then we also have Legion Leadership, which doubles the power of a creature and gives it first strike. So 2 very murdery cards here for Boros. And then lastly, you have Simic with Slumbering Waterways. It enters tapped. It can tap for a green or a blue, but it has Flying, Vigilance, and Trample. So what this means is when you animate it, surprise, we have a Flying, Vigilance, Trample land, typically a 3/3 because it's off of Nissa or whatever, but it's still a very good threat. And then we also have Tanglepool Bridge, which is indestructible. So when you animate this, you get an indestructible 3/3. Moving on to our final cards, I do have every single landscape from Modern Horizons 3. These are just lands that can fetch for 1 of 3 basic land types. They can cycle for the 3 colors of the basic land types they can search, and they can tap for a colorless. So I have the whole 10 cycle here, but I only have Bant, Esper, Grixis, Jund, and Naya in the cube. This was just for space. It was kind of just, I'm going to just stick with the shards of Alara instead of trying to find a 3-color thing for each one. Like, just keep it nice and simple, stupid. We're going to have Endless Detour for Bant here. The owner of target spell, non-land permanent, or a card in a graveyard puts on the top or bottom of their library. It's removal, it's a counter spell, but it also can be used on a Terminus or something in your graveyard to rebuy a Miracle, right? So Bant Miracles is kind of the major joke here. Esper, we have Hashiton Scarab's Fist. This helps enable Esper Reanimator really well because there's a lot of discarding in the cube, a lot of looters. You discard a card, Hashiton goes, okay, do you want to pay 3 to get that Elvish Norn back into play? And the answer is always yes. Kess, Dissident Mage. This is for the Izzet Spellslinger decks that typically go into Grixis a little bit. Very grindy card, really brutal if you're up against an opponent with any number of instants or sorceries, really, especially removal. Jund is Riveteer's Charm, once again, just nailing home that grave hate, but also it's removal, and then it's also just card advantage as well. Exile the top 3 cards of your library until the end of your next turn. You may play those cards. So just triple threat here to Jund them out. Jund them out is a card I maybe should put in the cube. Jund them out as a Jund sorcery, and it makes Liliana the Veil, Tarmogoyf, like one random Jund staple at random. It's a very funny playtest card. Jinny Faye, Jetmir Seconds up next. This is for treasure decks, because you can really easily crack treasure to cast Jinny. And then when you make more treasure tokens, you can just be like, I'm going to make a cat instead. I'm going to make dogs with haste or with vigilance instead. And so it's really funny, all the token generation in this cube, especially treasure token generation, that then Jinny Faye can turn into different shit. And then we have Atraxa here as the 5-color stand-in. Normally I'll put like one 5-color card in my cube, but here I just have Atraxa. Atrax is here for the Reanimator theme mostly, as well as Flickering and Ramp. Like, she does the whole gambit. So most of the time, I'm not expecting people to cast Atrax. I'm expecting people to Reanimate her. But yeah, generally, I do like Atrax a lot here in this cube. Fills a lot of archetypes, especially the Flicker ones.
All right, I think it's time about now that we move on to the monocolors here. So each monocolor is defined by 2 lands, as well as the entirety of instants, enchantments, sorceries, etc. So just know that each of these has 2 lands for each because I love lands. So in white, we have Kamiya False Hope. I do really like this card. This is mostly meant to combo with 6, which is, you know, you can retrace it repeatedly. It also combos very well with Lurrus, right? You can really grind a game to a halt with a Lurrus and a Kamiya False Hope. And then we, of course, also have a Starfield Shepherd here as well at the top end to warp and go find it if you need it. Moving on, we have Kythian. This is for the Boros aggro kind of strategy, where you can play Kythian and then you just have a Savannah Lions, but then eventually Kythian flips on over to Gideon Battleforged, which is a really annoying card as they just leave up a giant blocker and then force all of your creatures to swing into Gideon every turn to kill them. And then we have Topplegeist, my beloved. I will never, ever, ever cut Topplegeist from this cube. Very silly card. Really works well if you're doing some sort of green-white or black-white deck with any amount of Delirium, because both black and green mill a lot. And then Topplegeist here is just super annoying. Just poke. Oh, cute monster you have there. Poke. Goldspan Dragon, that's sideways now. It's really funny to get Delirium on this thing, and sometimes you get really cute plays where, like, you have a really nice go-wide aggro board, you have a giant creature in play or something, and they have one blocker that's in the way. You Starfield Shepherd, you get Topplegeist, enter the battlefield, tap it, kill you. It's really funny to have one of these floating around. I love Topplegeist. Moving on, we have Cathar Commando, which is for 1 and white, you get a 3/1 flash. All right, great. That's a 3/1 blocker, or it's a 3/1 attacker, but also pay 1, sacrifice, you can destroy target artifact or enchantment. Love flexible cards like these. And of course, this is loopable with Lurrus, right? It's a creature that sacrifices itself. Moving on, we have Charming Prince. Charming Prince is very good for the, once again, Yorion theme, where you flicker the Charming Prince, or rather you flicker the Yorion, and then the Yorion flickers the Charming Prince, and then the Charming Prince flickers the Yorion, which flickers your whole board every single time, right? So very good value loop there, but also it's very good once again with Lurrus. You play it with Lurrus, you flicker Lurrus. Oh, it's back. Oh, that's a new Lurrus. I'm going to play this second creature out of my graveyard, chump block with the Charming Prince, right? You get all this insane value with Charming Prince. Clarion Spirit. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, create a 1/1 spirit with flying. This is more on the angle of working with Fira, Judge of Valor, but it still works really well with Lurrus, where you go like Clarion Spirit from your graveyard, and the next turn you go 1-drop from your graveyard, 2-drop, and then you make a spirit, right? And then it works really well with Boros aggro, where you're really low down on the curve, and you go Clarion Spirit, 1-drop, and now you have 3 creatures. This can trigger, you know, your Kythian and stuff like that. Like, very valuable card for multiple archetypes. Speaking of very valuable card, we have Jacked Rabbit. Jacked Rabbit works really well with the Selesnya pump your dudes up theme, but it's also very good with Boros aggro, or it's really good with Lurrus. Lutri is the card I am considering swapping over Ral, by the way. I just remembered that. So, Jacked Rabbit, notable with Lurrus, is you can't giant the X out of your graveyard with Lurrus. You have to 2-drop the spell. That's just the rules of the game. It feels a little weird, I know. Like, oh, this is 2 mana value in my graveyard, but you can't make it larger on the stack if you're casting it with Lurrus, because Lurrus blocks you to 2 or less, sadly. Trust me, I've had that same exact thought. I was like, ooh, I started salivating. I'm going to build a Lurrus Hydra deck. No, it's not possible, sadly. Selfless Spirit is up next. This is the classic Lurrus card. This is, in fact, even in Vintage Cube, because it is just so annoying. You play Selfless Spirit with Lurrus in play, and it's like, well, your opponent's kind of hard locked. You have a 2-mana Avacyn, because you can just recast it every single turn. Very annoying, and part of the reason why graveyard hate's so prevalent in this cube. All right, we're up to the 3-drops now, so they have to be heavy hitters, because otherwise I would be running 2-drops instead. We have Adeline, Resplendent Cathar. Powers equal to number of creatures you control whenever you attack for each opponent, make a 1/1. This is just really good for Boros Go Wide. It is a super lethal threat. Really nothing else needed to explain here. Adeline's stupid. Very strong card. Bygone Bishop is up next. I really just appreciate this card. I really like Liars a lot. For a while, I thought I was going to put Safari in this cube. Bygone Bishop is one of those cards that seems relatively easy to replace, though. If I ever needed to put another 2-drop in, if I feel like Lurrus has never been that consistent, something like that, I can swap out the Bygone Bishop for a 2-drop.
Next up is Clarion Conqueror. This is a removal check again for the Rakdos players. Like, hey, can't use your treasures. And then also you hit planeswalkers and creatures. Very nice trifecta. I love this hate bear a lot. Very cool design. I like that it kills your opponent and slows them down. That's exactly what I want hate bears to do. I love hate bears. Hooray. Hanged Executioner. I'm tempted to put Safara in this cube, which is an angel that you can pay 1 white mana for a 7/7 if you have 4 flyers. And then she gives all other flying creatures indestructible. So this is also a remnant of Safara. If I decide not to put Safari in this cube, Hanged Executioner is probably coming out, although it works really well with Boros Go Wide Aggro, and it also kind of works with the Azorious Flicker. It's just like, I think I'd rather have like a different ETB creature here if I'm not going with Safara. Next up is Palace Jailer. Palace Jailer is broken. I will not be taking questions at this time. Palace Jailer is probably the most disgusting removal spell in this cube. Because you go 4 mana, exile your thing, I become the Monarch, I draw a card. Okay, great, I block with one of my creatures so you don't get the Monarchy. Next turn, I go Ephemerate the Palace Jailer, remove your creature that attacked me last turn that I shumped. Okay, great, draw another card. Okay, rebound on the Palace Jailer, exile the creature you just played. Like, it's so dumb. God, Palace Jailer's broken. Anyway, I love it though. Sarah Paragon. Sarah Paragon is here is Lurrus number 2. Just in case you draft this little weenies deck and you don't have a Lurrus, you can still Sarah Paragon and destroy your opponent that way instead. Sarah Paragon, of course, just being a very good flyer, 4 mana, 3/4. Once during each of your turns, you may play a land from your graveyard or cast a permanent spell with mana value 3 or less. But if you do, it exiles itself. It's kind of fixed in that way. It's not really as broken as Lurrus, where you can just loop the same thing over and over. But it is still very strong. Next up is our first playtest card in white, A Girl and Her Dogs. This is 4 and a white for a 3/3 creature human. When a girl and her dogs enters the battlefield, and at the beginning of your upkeep, you create a 1/1 legendary dog and name it. So you name it like Fido. Whenever a girl and her dogs attacks, it gets +1/+1 for each legendary you control. So you play this card, you get Fido. Upkeep, you get Brutus. Next turn, you get, I don't know, Calypso. And then you attack with your 6/6 girl and her dogs. So this is why Boros' theme is Go Wide, is to really support this card a lot. I mean, not like it needs much supporting. It's just very good to get a token every turn. Archangel Avacyn. Love this card. Oh, I miss it in Vintage Cube. It's too slow for Vintage Cube now, so in my cube it goes. By the way, I have the weird print from Innistrad Remastered. Old Border Avacyn. Yep, Archangel Avacyn. Love this card. It's very fun to flicker, right? Because if you have, once again, we have all these low mana value creatures that sacrifice themselves for Lurrus. And so what that means is you've cast Archangel Avacyn, and then you go, okay, great, I'm going to sack my Selfless Spirit for no reason. Okay, it flips. I Plague Wind you. Okay, great, I'm going to kill you with my Avacyn the Purifier. Oh, you targeted with a removal spell? Great news. Ephemerate. Oh, I reset it. Great news. I'm going to flash into Cathar Commando, blow up your enchantment. Okay, it flips again. Right, just resetting it repeatedly is so broken. I had 2 Thraben Charms in by accident. One of those was actually a Flicker Wisp. When Flicker Wisp enters, exile thing, return to the battlefield under its control at the beginning of the next end step. This should be Felia. I want to make this abundantly clear. I have not gotten my hands on a Felia yet. This Flicker Wisp right here, that card right there you're looking at, that's becoming a Felia someday. And yeah, that's about it. This is going to be Felia soon. I have put Felias in all my decks already, so I'm out of Felias to put in this cube, but this is going to be a Felia because it just works better with Lurrus. We already went over Starfield Shepherd enough. Hopefully this card's really good in this cube, and I'll mention other colors, I suppose, instead of Starfield Shepherd itself. Delver doesn't really matter. In black, it also really doesn't matter. In red, Shiv and Devastator is a pretty good X spell, so if you're like a white-red aggro deck, it's a good threat to grab with it. Darcy isn't that bad, I guess. And then green is really where you also win. You have Nyxborn Hydra, as well as Insidious Fungus, which is removal, and then you can just grab a Dork as well if you so are inclined. You can also get Elvish Reclaimer if you need a land tutor, I suppose. So, and lastly, we have Elesh Norn Grand Cenobite. I also have a weird printing here. I have the Multiverse Legends printing here. So this Elesh Norn is one of my favorite cards of Magic. Probably my second favorite card after Bruna. The big joke here with Elesh Norn is it works really well with Boros Go Wide. It works really well with Selesnya, but it also works really well with like a Dimir Reanimator deck. Like, you don't need to be able to cast Elesh Norn. Like, just Bone Shards her away and reanimate her, right? Like, this is a good enough top end to be reanimating. So I wanted to make sure that like there was a density of big drops that Dimir could use to reanimate, and this is the one for white. Moving on to instants, we have Ephemerate. I already kind of mentioned why Ephemerate's really good, but we'll get a little bit more info about Ephemerate when we get to blue. Getaway Glamour. This is a nice flicker spell, but it's also a removal spell. You can flicker your creature and then blow up their biggest thing. There's also just very fun play here where, like, if you have the biggest creature, you have to flicker your biggest creature to remove their big creature, right? So I just like the card a lot. Mana Tithe, hilarious. I'm never cutting this card. Swords to Plowshares, hilarious. I'm never cutting this card, right? Like, Swords is like a power outlier, but it's also just, oh my god, it's so good. And I don't think I'll ever get sick of swordsing and being swords. Like, I know it's like a broken card. This is a power outlier. It's probably the best card in white after Palace Jailer, but it is so iconic, and there's even more reason why it's extra good in this cube. Reprieve is up next. Return a spell to its owner's hand, draw a card. Very good for the aggro decks. Just 1 white, bounce your thing, peace out, draw a card. So very valuable there. We can also kind of, I'll get a little spoilery for the blue thing. We have Archaeomancer over here. You can get some really nasty loops with Archaeomancer and a bounce spell like this, because you go bounce your spell, Hykar, Zephyr, Awakener trigger, flicker the Archaeomancer, get back the Reprieve. You're dead. Like, you can't win the game anymore. Like, you just can't cast spells, and whenever you cast a spell, I draw a card. Brutal. And then lastly, we have Thraben Charm here. I love this card so much that I had 2 of it in the cube by accident for the first half of this video. It's really good for Boros Go Wide. It's just really good for any deck. If you have 2 creatures, this already does 4 damage, but it also has the modality of hitting graveyards if you're up against a lands deck or a Reanimator deck. We have 1 sorcery in white, and it's Terminus. Need I say more? Put all creatures on the bottom of their owner's library if you miracle it for 1 mana, but it's also just a 6 mana Wrath if you need it to be. Very stupid card to miracle. Next up, we have another playtest card in the only white artifact, Avacyn's Collar, the symbol of her church. It is 1 white for an equipment. Equipped creature can't attack, block, transform, and its activated abilities can't be activated. And you can shackle it for 3 mana. What that means is you can pay 3 mana to attach it to a creature you don't control. It's 5 mana for an arrest, all right? It's not that good, but you can move it around. If they play a scarier threat, you can move it over there and move it over here. And if they blow it up, you can replay it with Lurrus. If you mill it, you can play with Lurrus, right? So there's a lot of play with this card that I really appreciate. And it's also just a playtest card that's like, I'm trying to jam as many of those as possible in here. So there's Avacyn's Collar, the symbol of her church. Legion's Landing, this is once again for Boros, right? 1 mana, 1/1, effectively. It's an enchantment, but you get a 1/1 white vampire when you play it. And then when you attack with 3 or more creatures, much like Kythian, it flips over to a Danto, the first fort, which is just, it's ramp, and then it also makes a life-linking token every turn, which is really annoying to fight through. Dog Umbra is up next. I really like these spells that are removal spells and also simultaneously protection spells. So the floor of this is like, I arrest your creature. Okay, great. You've been pacifismed. It's pacifism with flash, which is honestly pretty good. The ceiling is, I have Lurrus in my deck. I flash in Dog Umbra, or rather I play Dog Umbra on Lurrus. Now Lurrus is protected, and every turn you don't kill Lurrus, I'm getting value. Every turn you do kill Lurrus, I replayed the Dog Umbra. It's just lose-lose. It is very good in a Lurrus deck, of course, but it's also just very good when you have Elish Norn out. I have Elish Norn. Okay, great, you're kill spelling her. Dog Umbra, kill you with Elish Norn. Like, very good play pattern there. All right, so Windbrace Kites. This is for Go Wide once again. Selesnya can use this really well. Boros can use this really well. And then we have Cave of the Frost Dragon. This is for the control decks. Once again, we have Creeping Tar Pit for Esper. We have Celestial Colonnade for any white-blue X deck. And Cave of the Frost Dragon. Once again, we're only seeing 90 cards of this cube at a time while drafting it. I want to make sure that control does have a finisher at all times. And Cave is the 3rd one of these effects. So it's very consistent that they're going to have a flying man land to hit you with. And once again, Cave of the Frost Dragon is effectively a Celestial Colonnade. It turns into a 3/4 dragon for 5 mana, much like how Celestial Colonnade turns into a 4/4 elemental. Okay, moving on, we have blue. Blue has a couple things to enable Miracle. So that being Brainstorm and Brain Surge. You draw, and then you put cards back on top. This also works really well with Delver of Secrets. Just being able to set that top card of your library to be anything you want means that Delver is consistently going to flip. And that's a really good threat to have on turn 1. Gobin. Gobin's for Reanimator, of course, but Grixis decks love to cast Faleem because there's so much discard in this cube. So Gobin is just a looter, right? He hits you, he can't be blocked, and then he connives, so you draw and then discard. And that makes him grow too, so very good for blue tempo decks running Delver. But then also Fleam side, you can cast spells from your graveyard that you discarded that turn, and they cost 2 less. So very strong pairing there. And it is actually Gobin Fleam in my cube. I've proxied this card to actually just be Gobin Fleam. Next up is Kitsa. Kitz is another looter, but it's also for Izzet prowess. Beat down with Izzet, Spellslinger, but you can also do Reanimator shenanigans with Kitz as a looter. And then we have some stupid copying instant or sorcery spells that you can try and go for, but honestly, Kitz is just really good to kill your opponent with. I've never seen anyone activate that last ability. It's always just been beat down, or I'm discarding my giant monster to reanimate. Looter Elcor, once again, just another very good beater. I really like Bant decks that can use Gobin and Looter here because they'll typically have like a couple auras kicking around or +1/+1 counter generators, and that's really annoying, especially if a Cutzil floating around. You draw 2 cards and then discard a card. Very brutal. Next up is Snapcaster Mage, just a very iconic card, but he's actually here to work with another card we'll get around to later. He's also just silly with any of the cheap removal that we're running. And there's a lot of cheap removal because, drumroll please, the cube has Micromancer in it. This is a Micromancer cube. I need to get a Spellseeker for this cube the more I think about it. But what I like about Micromancer is it helps supports the Miracles theme a lot because you can Micromancer for Brainstorm, of course. So this is another copy of Brainstorm. But also, Micromancer works really well in the Flickering theme because you can get Ephemerate. You can get Getaway Glamour. You can get like Mana Tithe or Swords. And then here in blue, we're spoiled for choice as well. We have 3 steps ahead. Spectral Restitching, right? This is a massive flicker spell for 1 blue mana. 3 steps ahead is a counter spell or a clone spell or what have you. Can Surveil and draw a card. And then, of course, the Star Brainstorm, which can set up other silly plays. And then we have 3 cantrips down here in sorceries as well. In black, we have things like Bone Shards, which is removal, but also a discard outlet, right? So Micromancer is juiced in this cube. Very strong card and very exciting to play and draft with. I love it so much. Of course, Toolbox Boy loves Micromancer, but you know what I mean. I should probably read this, by the way. It's 4 mana for a 3/3, and when it enters, you may search your library for an instant or sorcery card with mana value 1, reveal it, put in your hand, then shuffle. I also want to get a Spellseeker for this cube, which would be 3 mana 1/1, gets a spell of mana value 2 or less. Archaeomancer is here for the Flicker theme that we mentioned earlier. And going back for a second, because I got a little ahead of myself, we have Cure of the Rising Tide. This is a great way to turn all this looting and discarding. If you're not a Reanimator deck, if you didn't draft a single bomb, you still have Kiora here to Threshold, make a giant 8/8. So it's not completely hopeless. All right. Now we're moving on to 5-drops. Cavalier of Gales. This is a Brainstorm on a flyer. When it enters, you draw 3 and then put 2 back on top. Great for setting up miracles. But it has a lot of cute counterplay because when it dies, you shuffle it into its owner's library and then scry 2. So what that means is if you like top a miracle, there's a chance your opponent can kill spell this and shuffle away your miracle. So I really like that play pattern a lot. And it's also just a big flying beater. Lutri Pauper Otter's up next. This card is okay. It's not the best. There's a lot of non-commons in this cube, but it's a cute little card that I'm going to play with for now. 5 mana 3/4. When it enters, you discard your hand, then draw 3 cards. And then you can companion it if your deck is only commons, but honestly, good luck getting there in this cube. All right. Moving on to top end, we have Mirror Shell Crab. This is a counter spell that can target a spell or ability unless its controller pays 3 if you channel it for 2 and a blue, which means you discard it. It is a 5/7 crab with ward 3. What I like about this is that it is a giant creature with protection on it that also simultaneously discards itself. So you can reanimate it for Reanimator. It's also a different card type. It's artifact, so good for Delirium if you care about such things. And then we have Tolarian Terror. This is for Izzet decks, as well as some other archetypes like Dimir could probably use this pretty well too. Tolarian Terror's whole ordeal is you can spend 1 mana for a 5/5 if you have enough instants or sorceries in your graveyard, and then it's just an annoying ward 2 creature that sits there. You counterspell all the removal, you start hitting them with a 5/5. Pauper play pattern that's very, very strong. All right. We've already covered all the cantrips here. Brainstorm, Consider, Preordain. So I'm going to skip over these, but we can talk a little bit more about Spectral Restitching. Exile X target artifacts and or creatures. Return the exile cards onto the battlefield under their owner's control to begin the next end step. So you can flicker blockers. You can flicker your Micromancer, Archaeomancer, right? Like there's a lot of modes that this card has that makes it very versatile, but it's also very fun, of course, in a Micromancer cube. 3 steps ahead, you can counter a spell. You can create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, or you can draw 2 cards, then discard a card. Works with Reanimator, works with Micromancer, Flicker stuff. And then, of course, you can create a token of like a giant monster in like a ramp deck or something. So just stupid card all around, very funny. All right, we have Counterspell, just tried and true classic. I'm probably never cutting this once again. Snapcaster Counterspell is an iconic play pattern that I love having in my cube. So yeah, Days, this is for the Delver tempo blue decks that end up happening from time to time, especially in Grixis. If you're in Grixis, you can have a really gnarly tempo deck, and having a Days in that kind of deck is really brutal. Next up is Deduce. Draw a card, then Investigate. This seems kind of out of left field, right? Kind of power outliery. But the main joke here is Miracles. You have two... this is better than Think Twice, which is a card with Flashback 3 that's 2 mana that says draw a card. So you pay 2 mana, draw a card, pay 3 mana, draw a card. But here with Deduce, it's 2 mana each time because the Investigate, the clue is 2 mana to crack open. And what this means is you can brainstorm on your turn and then Terminus on your opponent's turn by deducing. And then you have a clue token, which you can then use for another miracle that you end up top deck manipulating or what have you again. So very good with miracles. Long River's Pull is up next. This is blue for an instant. You can gift a card and you can counter a creature spell, but if you gifted a card, you can counter any spell. Brain Surge. This is 3 mana, draw 4, but then you get to put 2 cards back on top. It's just a giant brainstorm. Very good. Fact or Fiction. This is a possible cut. I'm going to probably be cutting this for Jace the Mind Sculptor, just for more top deck manipulation in blue, as well as another control kind of finisher card. Jace might be too strong the more I think about it, but I'm willing to try him out over a Fact or Fiction. Of course, Jace's big thing is you can surveil for your opponent, or you scry for your opponent is the +2. +0 is you can brainstorm, you draw 3 and then put 2 on top, which sets up miracles. You can -1 to bounce a creature to its owner's hand, and then it has a giant -12 that exiles your entire opponent's library, and then they put their hand into their library. It's really brutal. That just wins the game practically. All right, moving on to sorceries. We have Demon Furier. There's a lot of all these like extra draw cards, so this is a very good card to deal with anything, and it's very cheap to do so, especially with like a Kiora, right? Because you draw your card for turn, you Kiora, you draw 2, discard 2, and then you go, okay, great, 1 mana, Demon Furier thing. Blue needed some amount of removal here that was not tied to bouncing or countering. Like, when something's in play, if you're just playing blue, you're kind of messed up and ruined, especially if you're like blue-green or something. So I wanted to have blue to have some amount of removal, even if it doesn't have much more. Devastation Tide, this is a board wipe. It is a 5 mana sorcery, return all non-land permanents to their owner's hands. This can combo with, of course, Archaeomancer, right? You return Archaeomancer, then you play Archaeomancer, you get the Devastation Tide back, you have a board wipe every turn. But you can miracle it for 1 and a blue. So you put this on top, and then you deduce, and you draw it, and then you bounce everything on your opponent's turn, and then you get all the tempo. Very interesting card there. Another miracle card here, Temporal Mastery. 7 mana, take an extra turn after this one, exile Temporal Mastery, but you can miracle it for 1 and a blue. Very brutal card. And probably my favorite miracle to top deck. It's very funny to just draw the Temporal Mastery and just go, well, I guess I'm taking an extra turn now. Very funny kind of card. Treasure Cruise is our last card. This is meant to be a payoff, once again. If you're just a Dimir deck and you're kind of dirtling around and you don't have any of the big reanimation targets, that's fine because you have Treasure Cruise. Like all those cards you discarded to the looters and stuff, they're getting used for something. This is also true for the Solarian Terror for the Kiora, right? So Treasure Cruise is just another one of these payoffs that just lets you immediately cash in a graveyard that you made for 3 cards, which is very brutal, especially in like a control kind of matchup. All right, moving on to lands, we have Cephalid Coliseum. Cephalid Coliseum's for mostly Reanimator because you're able to just discard 3 cards very easily. Helps with card flow quite a bit, especially in the late game. But Mystic Sanctuary is also here, and I'm probably going to cut Mystic Sanctuary. Like I said at the beginning of the video, you're typically on 3 colors, and that makes having 3 islands nigh impossible. Just like, I don't know if Mystic Sanctuary can enter untapped in a Winston draft of this cube, sadly. It's probably more possible in a 4-player draft where the entire cube gets drafted, but not in Winston, which is the main play mode. So I'm probably going to end up replacing this with a different blue land. Speaking of which, actually, wait. Ta-da, Scryfall. ID equals blue type land. Let's find one. Ongaquila is pretty interesting. Although I typically like to avoid Universes Beyond cards for my cube. Nothing against people who like them, of course. They're just not for me, I suppose. Could do like a Glasspool Mimic kind of situation. Yeah, just having a clone's really good. Hall of Storm Giants is another creature land that's very strong. Ooh, Halimar Dapps. You can stack the top cards of your library. Kind of like that. Okay, we have some contenders there. Mistrise Village is pretty interesting, but there's not that many counter spells in the cube. Ooh, Riptide Lab. There's a lot of wizards in the cube, especially like Micromancer. You can start looping with it. Okay, Riptide Lab might be something. Think into Stupid's pretty strong. Oh, Sunken Palace. 1 in a blue, exile 7 cards from your graveyard, add blue. When you spend this mana to cast or copy a spell, or when you activate an ability or cast a spell, you copy it. So that's pretty cool. Hilary West could be interesting. Just a land tutor. Okay. We have some contenders now for blue lands here. Anyway, sorry for the cube design tangent. Let's look at black now. For black, we have Carrion Feeder. Very broken card. Just super brutal. It's effectively, you need to remove this, because if you ever remove any of my creatures, this thing grows. And then it's also just like a really good sack outlet for things that do want to die. Like, you can loop stuff with Lurrus in this really easily. I prefer it over Viscera Seer in cubes like this because it puts on a lot of pressure versus Viscera Seer, which just kind of does value. I guess the scrying from Viscera Seer works better with Miracles, but I really don't see like a Miracles Aristocrat deck being all that good in this cube. So, moving on. Dockside Chef. We have 1 black mana for an enchantment creature, Human Citizen. Very good for Delirium. And you can pay 1 in black, sacrifice a artifact or creature to draw a card. Very good with Lurrus again, because you just sacrifice a 2-drop, and then you replay the 2-drop, and then, oh my gosh, infinite value. Good luck outgrinding that. And then it's just a sack outlet too. If you just have 2 mana open, you're basically immune to removal, which is very nice as well. Very strong card in Limited. Persistent Specimens up next. I kind of just like having at least one idiot that floats around that you can kind of like, even without Lurrus, you can just sack it guilt-free. And Persistent Idiot is my my card of choice for that one. Scornblade Berserker. This is just another kind of Village Rites effect, but this one works with Lurrus, right? Pay 1 black mana, you get a 0/1 Human Berserker with backup 1. Backup 1 means you can put a counter on a creature, and then it gains all the other abilities of this card until end of turn. You can pay 1, sacrifice this creature to draw a card. So Scornblade Berserker, right? You can turn any other creature into a Scornblade Berserker, pay 1, sack that creature, sack this creature, play the first creature with Lurrus, next turn play the Scornblade Berserker. This gets especially brutal if that other creature's Black Cat, right? When it dies, target opponent discards a card at random, right? You start looping Scornblade Berserker and Black Cat, and eventually your opponent has no cards, and you've drawn 2 cards every other turn. Brutal. Accursed Marauder. This is like the best card with Lurrus. You sack a non-token creature, I sack a non-token creature, Accursed Marauder goes back into my graveyard, I can replay this with Lurrus. It's also just good with like Mayhem Devil and like all the other sacrifice synergies in this cube. Blood Artist. Blood Artist I like, just kind of gets the game moving. So, you know, if I swing at you and you chump block, you're still taking damage. If I'm doing Lurrus loops, you're getting drained slowly, right? Like everything about Blood Artist I really like about it, like in this kind of cube where stalemates can kind of happen. I've been in a couple staring contests in this where a Blood Artist would have just completely changed how the texture of the game. So love Blood Artist. Undead Butler. This is very good. I like cards that mill and then also get you a card. Undead Butler is one of those cards. And I like this a lot more in this cube than a Stitcher Supplier. Stitcher Supplier is very strong with Lurrus, don't get me wrong, but Undead Butler is a lot better in those situations where you don't draft the Lurrus, right? Like these are the things you have to think about when you're building a Winston cube. Is like, I'm not always going to open Lurrus because every time I draft this cube as a Winston cube, I am looking at maybe 1/3 of the cards maximum. So what that means is Undead Butler beats out Stitcher Supplier. It mills less cards, sure, but in a vacuum, it's a lot better because you get a card back when you play an Undead Butler. It basically draws a card. Fire Beetle's up next. It's just another one of these Black Cat kind of effects you can loop with Lurrus in a sack outlet that I really like. And I like that it's also 2 types for Delirium. Hooray. Zentarum Bandit's the last one. This is the treasure token card for black, at least a low drop treasure token card for black. 2/1, when it attacks, you may pay a life if you do make a treasure. Right, just mana fixing. Very good. Next up, we have Drana. We have all these little weenies in white and black for Lurrus, and I was like, you know what? I'm tired of Boros getting all the go wide stuff. Let's add 1 Drana, Liberator of Malakir, you know? So if you're Mardu, most of your cards are going to be 2 to 3 mana. And so what that means is you just like, you vomit out a board really easily. That board makes more tokens. Like you have some stupid token generation like Jackrabbit or whatever. And then you just like Drana hit them over the head and everything gets a +1/+1 counter. It's really, really deadly. Skullport Merchant's up next. This is very similar to Dockside Chef. It has the same activate ability, sacrifice a creature, an artifact or creature, except here it says sacrifice another creature or treasure, draw a card, and then when it enters, yeah, make a treasure. 3 mana make a treasure is pretty okay. It's not the best thing in the world, but it can like ramp you into a 5-drop like Obsidian Charmall without any lands on your opponent's side, or Goldspan Dragon, or Custodial Lich, right? Like going from 3 to 5 is not a joke. But then also it mana fixes, right? It's a pretty decent card. I kind of enjoy this as a glue card for the treasure archetype. Caesarian Voidborn, this is for, once again, this is for the aristocrats kind of theme that Orzhov has going on, but it also works with treasure, right? Whenever this creature or another creature or artifact dies, target opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So Blood Artist sees your opponent's creatures dying, right? So it's a little bit stronger in that regard, but this sees your treasures dying for Rakdos. So very strong card there. And we actually have a little bit of a loop here where you can get some funny value because we have Magda the Horde Master. Whenever you commit a crime, you make a tap treasure. And what that means is, well, great, I'm going to crack that treasure. I committed a crime. You lose 1 life, I gain 1 life. I make a new treasure. It only triggers once each turn. You can't go infinite with this, but it is like a slow drain, like the Blood Artist kind of loops you can get with like a Cursed Marauder or what have you. Custodial Lich is up next. Enters, you become the Monarch. Whenever you become the Monarch, target player sacrifices a creature. This is very, very reminiscent of in White Palace Jailer, right? It's 1 mana more, but it's a lot less of a downside if you get the Monarch taken from you. So it's a little bit of a trade-off there, but I really like Custodial Lich. These Monarch cards are some of my favorite kind of grindy cards because if you play them wrong, you kind of get blown out. But if you play them right, you can take over a game with a Personal Howling Mine. Very fun for controlling decks. Lastly, we have Metamorphosis Fanatic. This here is for the Reanimator theme. It is a 6 mana 4/4 lifelinker. When it enters, you return up to 1 target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with the lifelink counter on it, but you can miracle it for 1 mana black. So the Reanimator theme we're going to see is going to be mostly based around miracles because, let's move on to sorceries here. We have Entreat the Dead. This is basically 5 mana reanimated creature because it's XX black, 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 so 5 total mana to return X target creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. So you can pay 1/1 black, black, black to reanimate Atraxa, but you can also miracle it for X black, black. So what that means is if you miracle this, you can go like X is 3. So for the same mana value, you return 1 Atraxa. You can get like Atraxa, Lurrus, and like a different creature back, which is really funny. And that's 2 reanimation spells, count them, that are miracles, which is really funny. We also have No One Left Behind. I like the flexibility of the spell, so it works really well with Lurrus decks, right? Because you can reanimate any creature for 2 mana. But if you're a big reanimator deck, you can still pay 5 mana and get an Atraxa into play, and that's kind of game winning. So I like the modality of this being small for small things, big for big things. Very cool, especially in a deck with this much Orzhov sacrificing. Bone Shards, this is to set up reanimation plays, right? You discard a card or sacrifice a creature, and then you can destroy target creature or planeswalker. I like that it's a sack outlet too. That makes it better than a lot of these other ones that say discard a card to do this. All right, that's all of our sorceries, but let's move on to instants now. We have Bitter Triumph, which I have the funny store championships printing of. There we go, updated. You may discard a card or pay 3 life for this kill spell, and then destroy target creature or planeswalker. Once again, just another discard outlet for Reanimator. Blade Brand. Target creature gains death touch until end of turn, draw a card. I like that this card cantrips. I like that it's a combat trick, but it's also hilarious with Mayhem Devil, where you go like rapid fire pinging with treasure tokens. I've also had a game in a Mardu deck where I had Archangel Avacyn. It flipped, and then in response to the trigger, I Blade Branded her. So it death touched like a giant board of green stompy creatures. It just destroyed them all instead of just dealing 3 damage to them, which would have done basically nothing. So very funny card in this cube. I really enjoy how it plays. Because you always think about Blade Brand when someone attacks you with like a weird attack. You're like, God, do I really block and get blown up by Blade Brand? Cleaver Blow is up next. This is our first playtest card in black, I believe. 1 to black, multi-cleave 1. As an additional cost, you may pay 1 any number of times. If you do, you remove a set of angled brackets from this card. Guys, I do not blame you for pausing the video here and reading this card like 4 times. Like, this is a difficult card to parse even when listening to it. So, destroy target non-black creature with mana value 3 or less and opponent controls. You and its controller draw a card and lose 2 life. Create a tapped 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. So if you multi-cleave this, you can get rid of non-black, or you can get rid of mana value 3 or less, or you can get rid of an opponent controls, or you and its controller each, or lose 2 life, or create a tapped. And what this means, and you can remove any one of those or all of them depending how many times you multi-cleave it. So really weird card, very fun to play with though, and it actually fits in a lot of the themes in this cube because you can blow up your own creature, replace it with a spirit for 3 mana, and then draw a card, lose 2 life. Like, that's not the best, but it's fine if you really wanted to loop a creature with Lurrus, for instance. It's just a kill spell that's always very valuable in any deck. But it also makes a flyer, which is very valuable for the Boros attacking theme, right? Like Windbrisk Heights really likes a flyer. So does Kithian and Legion's Landing, right? So if you're in Mardu there, like it's very good. Yeah, very silly card. I really enjoy Cleaver Blow as a design, although I really hope they never make it a real card because I don't want headaches. I only want headaches while I'm playing my cube, not Commander or whatever. Deadly Dispute's up next. 1 to black, has an additional cost. Sacrifice an artifact or creature. Draw 2 cards, make a treasure. Very simple, straightforward card. It's a Village Rites, but you get a treasure token out of it, so it helps mana fix you if you're not in green. Aggro Mauling's up next. I just really like MDFCs, and this is one of the most free ball ones ever. I probably should replace it with Felder Profane, but I just don't have one on me. I like that Felder Profane also targets Planeswalkers, which is going to be very important in this cube when I add Jace the Mind Sculptor. And I also like that it enters untapped, so this will probably become a Felder Profane in the future, but just having a kill spell that's also a land is very valuable. All right, moving on to enchantments. All of these can be replayed by Lurrus. All of these are mana value 2 or less. We have Deadweight. Enchanted creature gets -2/-2 for 1 black. Very strong with Lurrus, but it's also just a decent removal spell. Animate Dead. This is the best reanimate in the cube. We have the other 2 reanimates that are miracles. This one is like an actual honest to God reanimate, and then it's also really good with like Lurrus value looping. Fungal Fortitude. This is also very good with Lurrus, right? Flash enchant creature gets +2/+0 when it dies, returns to the tapped, right? This is a Selfless Spirit loop with Lurrus again, but it can also protect like a reanimated Atraxa or what have you. So very good card. That's like also fine for the Flicker archetype if you end up in black-white or something. Mire's Grasp is up next. This is a bigger Deadweight. 1 more mana, but it gets another -1/-1 for a total of -3/-3, and you can just replay this card repeatedly with Lurrus. Lastly, we have Oversold Cemetery. This is the hedge case in case you don't draft a Lurrus. You'll still have Oversold Cemetery to start looping annoying things that sacrifice themselves out of your graveyard. And also, this is why enchantment and artifact removal are very important in this cube. Oversold Cemetery is probably one of the strongest enchantments here. Lastly, for lands, we have Mortuary Mire. This helps set up the Metamorphosis Fanatic Miracle, but also you can just rebuy a Lurrus or what have you. And then Dakmor Salvage. Enters tapped. Tap, add black, but you can also dredge it for 2. We've already seen 1 Retrace card so far. We're going to see more of those as well throughout this cube. All right. So that was it for black. Let's move on to red now. First things first, we have Dragon's Rage's Channeler. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, surveil 1, and then Delirium, as long as there's 4 more card types among cards in your graveyard, gets +2/+2, has flying, and attacks each combat of Fable. I really like this for the instant or sorcery matters archetype, right? Like Izzet Prowess, Delver Secrets, Dragon Rage's Channeler, a prowess creature like Kitza, and then you're off to the races just spamming cantrips and stuff. Like that's a very fun archetype to be in. And of course, those cantrips also help you Miracle in a more controlling deck. So everyone wants the cantrips. I really like that this design lets me basically have a second Delver of Secrets in my Singleton cube. Shivan Devastator. This is for Gruul Ramp, but also it's for Rakdos Treasures, because this gets double X if it's treasure and you have Kalain in play, right? They enter the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter for each mana from a treasure spent to cast them. This Flying Haste Dragon enters with X +1/+1 counters on it. So if you tap X's 5 and 4 of that 5 was from treasures, hey, great news, bud. You're getting another +4/+4 on top of that +5/+5 for a 9/9 Flying Haste Dragon. Ridiculous. Charming Scoundrel. This is a very nice card for a Reanimator kind of deck, right? It loots. Discard a card, then draw a card. Very good to set up Delirium as well. But also create a treasure token. Just very valuable. You can also just give a creature +1/+1 with the Wicked Roll. That's good for like a Selesnya based deck. So like a Naya deck where you have Cutsil in play. You can Charming Scoundrel onto a creature, swing. It has +1/+1. Cutsil draws you a card, right? So there's a lot of modes that this card has, in addition to just being a 1/1 little haster. Next up is Magda the Horde Master. Whenever you commit a crime, you create a tap treasure. This is probably one of the best treasure generators in the cube. Just being able to kill spell your thing with my Lightning Bolt, make a treasure token. Hey, that's the black mana I needed to cast this black spell now. Like, that's very good. And then just like the games where you're treasure flooded, because let's face it, there's some games where you just have so many lands and you end up just having all these treasures sitting around that do nothing. Just being able to turn those into 4/4 dragons by sacrificing 3 of them makes Magda super versatile. Probably, once again, just the best treasure card in the cube, right next to Captain Lannery Storm. 3 mana, 2/2 haste. Whenever she attacks, you make a treasure token. And then whenever you sack treasure, she gets big. Once again, helps with treasure flooding, makes a treasure right away. Very valuable card. Love it. Detective's Phoenix is up next. 1 red mana bestow, collect evidence 6. Or you can pay 2 in a red for a 2/2 haste. So 2 in a red, 2/2 haste with flying. That's kind of mid. But 1 red mana, collect evidence 6, which means exile 6 mana value worth of cards from your graveyard. You can bestow it onto a creature. It gives that creature +2/+2 and flying and haste. And then when it dies, of course, it just puts the Phoenix into play. And then you can cast this from your graveyard using its bestow ability. So just like ridiculously broken every way you slice it, right? Like putting a Detective's Phoenix on, for example, a Prosperous Bandit, which is a 3 mana 2/2 first striker with Offspring 1. So you can make a 1/1 copy of it for 1 mana. And then whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, create that many tapped treasure tokens. I have in this cube bestowed upon a Prosperous Bandit, swung for 4, made 4 tapped treasures. Like, that's really good. But moving on, we have Gut. Once again, Gut works really well with Treasure. You can turn Treasure into 4/1 skeletons with Menace. And you can also turn little dorks from like some in your Boros aggro deck from like Clarion Spirit or Jackrabbit into 4/1 skeletons. Moving on, we have Weftstalker Ardent. This is an impact tremors for both creatures and artifacts. So Boros really likes it and Rakdos really likes it. I like that modality. I like creating tension in the drafting like that. Decadent Dragon. I have this in mono red, but it does have a black instant, which lets you exile the top 2 cards of an opponent's library face down. You may look at them and play them for as long as they remain exiled, but the red mode is 2 red for a 4/4 creature dragon with flying and trample, and whenever it attacks, you make a treasure token. Very simple. It's a little baby Goldspan dragon, basically. Just a flying threat that makes treasure. Pyroglyph is up next. There's all this milling and discarding and stuff. Pyroglyph is going to get huge, and then God forbid you have an Ephemerate in your Boros deck, and you just kill them, right? Like, Pyroglyph can easily get up to 6 or 7 power. Sorry, I didn't mean to. Anyway, Goldspan Dragon's up next. I mentioned it earlier. I think we have the combo. Yeah, we have the combo here. There's a secret play you can do in Cube with Goldspan Dragon. So, first things first, Goldspan Dragon, 5 mana, flying, haste, 4/4 dragon, already very good. But when it attacks or becomes the target of the spell, you make a treasure token. Oh, even better. And then also, treasures tap for 2 mana. Wow, ridiculously broken, especially with something like, of course, Kalane, which will make 2 +1/+1 counters for each treasure you sack on a creature spell you cast. But Goldspan Dragon here, we have a white border Chain Lightning here. Does 3 damage to any target. Then that player or that permanent's controller may pay 2 red. If that player does, you may copy the spell. So what happens is you can Chain Lightning your own Goldspan Dragon and then pay 2 red mana to make a treasure and then shoot that at your opponent. Little secret tech for you, by the way. Powerful combo. You can get a free treasure. Next up is Obsidian Charmaw, which is a 5 mana 4/4. Costs 1 less for each land your opponent's control that can produce colorless. So really blows out Eldrazi gamers. Flying, and then when it enters, destroy target non-basic land and opponent controls. So here with Obsidian Charmaw, the major joke is there's so many broken lands in this cube, right? Like we have all the man lands for control decks to use. We have all these like combo lands that we'll get into later when we start actually delving more into lands. And being able to just like, here's a threat I'm developing, but I'm also blowing up your land is a very good thing. You can also just like blow up a bounce land. That's really brutal, right? So I like Flying Beater that also helps nix your opponent's game plan if they're doing unfair land shenanigans is always very good in this cube. Next up is Tragda the Burner. You can see image coming right up. I need to pull up Tragda on Scryfall. This is an unknown event card, which means that this is literally a sticker stuck onto a magic card. And it's from an unknown event hosted by Gavin Verhey. So this is Tragda the Burner. It is a 7 mana legendary creature, dragon human, flying. Whenever a land card is put into a graveyard from anywhere, I wonder how you do that. Maybe with Life from the Loam or discard spells, or with sacrificing a fetch land, or maybe with a dragon of some sort that we mentioned literally right before this one. And then whenever Tragda attacks, choose one, destroy target land, or deals 4 damage to target creature. And then she grows whenever a land goes anywhere. So this is a really funny side grade to Borborygmos, right? Also works alongside Borborygmos, where you go Lightning Bolt, Lightning Bolt, Lightning Bolt. Effectively, every land does 5 damage to your opponent because you get 2 counters every time you do it as well. So just really insane, funny card here, even though it is very expensive to cast and stuff. It's also just good top end for a Reanimator deck, right? Just putting a 7/7 in play that does 4 damage to a creature every turn. Ugh, yucky. Especially if it has a lifelink counter on it from Metamorphosis Fanatic, right? Like, there's a lot that Tragda does here. It's actually really fun that this playtest card lines up super well with all these different archetypes in the cube. Next up is Bedlam Reveler. This is for Izzet Prowess, of course. Costs 1 less to cast for each instant or sorcery in your graveyard. It's a giant 8 mana, so it's a 6 red 3/4. It has Prowess, and then when it enters, you discard your hand and draw 3 cards. So very good card for Spellslinger. Moving on to instants, we have Unholy Heat, white border. Does 2 damage, but if you have Delirium, it does 6 instead. Punishing Fire. We already went over the combo with the Gruul land, Grove of the Burn Willows. Fiery Temper. All this discarding. I want to not just add Lightning Bolt to the cube, and sometimes Fiery Temper is better than Lightning Bolt, because when you discard the Fiery Temper, you madness it for 1 red. Very, very strong play to do that. Big score as well. This is for treasure, but also discard outlet. Discard outlets are kind of important throughout this cube. And also the fact that it's an instant means this isn't as clunky as something like a Pirate's Pillage or something. Another effect that kind of does that. Bolt Fire. Okay, this is why Snapcaster is mostly in the cube, honestly. I wanted to make Bolt Fire fit. Bolt Fire by itself is already just a decent card. Does 2 damage to any target for 1 red mana. That's fine. You're not like ecstatic, like clicking your heels about this, but it is definitely fine. But it has Flash Forward. 4 in red. You may cast this card from exile for its Flash Forward cost, then put it on the bottom of your library. So if you Treasure Cruise it away, if you cast this, Snapcaster Mage it, then it's ready to be flash forwarded because it exiles when you flash it back, right? So this take on flashback is really funny in this cube, or really funny in general, and I wanted to make it kind of shine in this cube, at least with a couple different plays you can do. It also like punishes opponent's graveyard hate. Like if you have a good graveyard and they go, think exile your graveyard, you get a 5 mana deal 2. Which isn't a strong sorcery by any means, but you did kind of draw a card, and that's kind of what Limited's all about. Bonfire of the Dam's up next. Really funny card to go grab off of Micromancer. In fact, Micromancer is a little bit of a combo here where you can go Micromancer for Ephemerate, Ephemerate Micromancer, get Bonfire of the Dam, and then Ephemerate Micromancer, get Brainstorm, and then you Brainstorm the Bonfire of the Damned on top of your library, and then next turn you get to actually full Bonfire them. Bonfire of the Damned, of course, is XX red. Deals X damage to target player and each creature he or she controls, and you can also shoot a Planeswalker instead. There's Planeswalker redirection on Bonfire, or at least I think so. Correct me if I'm wrong in chat, but you can blow up a Planeswalker with this, I'm pretty sure. And then it has Miracle for X in a red, so it becomes half as expensive when you Miracle it, which is ridiculous for this kind of effect. Chain Lightning, already mentioned why it's kind of in the cube for that silly Goldspan Dragon play, which actually does come up from time to time. Like that treasure token's locked behind expert level plays. Find it hilarious. And there's also just a decent removal spell, just like shoot you in the head for 3, shoot your creature for 3. I like it more than Lightning Bolt in this cube because it is a silly white border mystery booster 2 card. Faithless Looting's in the cube. Once again, silly white border mystery booster 2 card, but it also fits in like a black-red reanimator kind of deck. And then it also works really well with Detective's Phoenix, right? With green-red delirium kind of strategy. Plasma Bolt's up next. This works well with treasure. Once again, another side grade to Lightning Bolt. Not really quite a Lightning Bolt, but I like that it has synergy that Lightning Bolt doesn't have insofar in as it becomes a real Lightning Bolt when a permanent has left the battlefield this turn. So you actually have to jump through a hoop to get your Lightning Bolt. Mizzium Mortar is up next. This is just a game ender, but it's also just really good to deal 4 damage to a creature you don't control. That's about the long and short of it. But also once you get to that 6 mana threshold, you can just go, goodbye your board. I'm going to kill you now. Fiery Confluence, this card kills people. It's very strong. I wanted red to have a couple of board wipes, so that way if you're like Jeskai control, you have the means of controlling the board really well. It is 2 red. Choose 3, may choose the same mode more than once. Does 1 damage to each creature. That's 4 mana. It does 3 damage to each creature. Very strong card if you pick that mode 3 times. Fiery Confluence does 2 damage to each opponent. Very good for an aggro deck, right? 4 mana, shoot you for 6. And then there's also Destroy Target Artifact. There's not that many artifacts in the cube, but it comes up every so often. Like your giant flyers, Avacyn's Collared, so you use that mode once and then deal 4 damage to them. That's not half bad. Next is Throes of Chaos. This is one of these retrace cards that works really well with Dakmor Salvage. Just cast the throws, 3 in a red, Cascade, Retrace. And of course, it also triggers everything in a Mardu deck like Clarion Spirit and Fira, Judge of Valor, where you just go, okay, I cast this, I cascade into a different spell. That's my second spell I've cast this turn. Trigger all my second spell stuff. Inspired Tinkering, 4 and a red. Exile the top 3 cards of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play those cards, and then you create 3 treasure tokens, which effectively makes this 2 mana. So it mana fixes, it makes a ton of treasures for Kalain, or like another big play like a Shivan Devastator, and then it draws you 3 cards. Broken. I love Inspired Tinkering so much. This is probably one of my favorite like cast from exile cards ever. And it should actually be in more commander decks. If you're running like Ren's Resolve or something, consider an Inspired Tinkering. It is really that good. Just seeing that extra card and ramping yourself 3 turns for that one burst of mana is really solid. This has always played very well for me. Lastly, we have Fable Dimir Breaker. This is up there with Lannery Storm and Magda, some of the best treasure token generation because it just enters, makes a 2/2 that when it attacks, you make a treasure token. The second chapter of the saga, you may discard up to 2 cards. If you do draw that many cards, once again, discarding cards is very good in this cube. We have Fiery Temper and Detective's Phoenix and stuff. And then third mode, you flip it into Reflection of Kiki Jiki, which works with all the ETB payoffs in white-blue. So really versatile card here, Fable. It's just very strong in this cube. Moving on to lands, we have 2 cards for Boros aggro. Gobland, the Goblin Mountain. 2/1, can't block. Land creature. And then we have Sokenzen Crucible Defiance, which you can just pay 4 mana with to just immediately get a board of Battalioners. So, like, if you have Kythian in play, you go 2-drop, and then 3-drop you can go Sokenzan because it's cost reduced by 1 because you control the legendary Kythian. And then now you have 2 more creatures you can swing with alongside your 2-drop that flips Kythian over. Ta-da! Right? If Kythian at least 2... Okay, you need to swing with Kythian himself, but you know what I mean. You can set yourself up. It's really good for that Boros deck. All right, moving on to green now. We have a Glut of Dorks. There's Avacyn's Pilgrim. I just have the full art Magic Fest version of this card, which I kind of like. So it's in the cube. That's the long and short of it. Any green deck's just kind of happy to have a dork, even if they can't use the white mana. Arbor Elf is here. We have a lot of enchantments that enchant lands, and by a lot I mean 3. Utopia Sprawl, Fertile Ground, Overgrowth. All 3 of these cards kind of combo with the Arbor Elf up there, where it's just like Fertile Ground, Utopia Sprawl, or mana fixing. Overgrowth just makes a utterly ludicrous amount of mana, right? Like a land taps for 3 mana, and then you untap it with the Arbor Elf. Stupid. Just really strong play pattern. And then we kind of already talked about Nyxborn Hydra, this being able to be grabbed by Starfield Shepherd, but also it working really well with Cutsil and stuff. The Gruul ramp strategy just kind of loves this guy. And then Insidious Fungus, just versatile removal and ramp. What's there not to love? Moving on, we have a mill option here, an Aftermath Analyst. When it enters, you mill 3 cards, and you can pay 3 and a green to sacrifice it to return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tap. So super ramps. There's no combos with Aftermath Analyst in the cube. You can do a lot of combo lines with this card, but this is just here for like fair delirium value. Well, fair, you can see the air quotes. And then it just turbo ramps you into the late game right away. Very strong card to play on 2. Secure Tribe Elders here. I have the cute little promo version here, the full art that I really like. So that's in the cube, even though it's like kind of a middling ramp spell in my opinion. Also just triggers stuff really well, like Morbid, and you can also replay it with Lurrus repeatedly, I guess. There's some value to be had with Secure Tribe Elder over better ramp options. Dry to the Elysian Grove, not gonna lie, this is mostly for Delirium, but it being mana fixing as well as ramp, as well as Delirium, like doing all those things at once, being a decent blocker with a huge butt, all those things do add up to being an interesting card in this cube. Rampant Fragrantia, this is some of the more interesting ramp I was talking about earlier. 2 and a green for a 3/3 Trampler. A line of text that doesn't matter. Rampant Fragrantia has +10/+10 for each player who lost the game. Who cares? But also, whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may mill that many cards. Put any number of lands from among them onto the battlefield tapped. So you play this 3 mana 3/3, and then you start crashing out with it. And if you connect, you just start milling and then putting lands into play. Really funny card, even though it never gets the +10/+10 until either you or your opponent lose. 6. 6 is for self-mill, of course, but also it's a reacher. Also, it gives everything retrace, which is stupid with Dakmor Salvage, as we have established. So a lot of stupid stuff you can do with 6 in this cube. Very, very funny card. And I love any sort of grindy green strategy that can use 6 very well. Sowing Mycospawn's up next. This is just a good ramp spell. It also is a land tutor for a couple of the land combos we'll be getting into eventually. And of course, a big land combo as well is just like Sowing Mycospawn, I'm in Selesnya, I get Cave of the Frost Dragon, start killing you with my land. But it also has kicker. So if you have colorless floating around, which isn't hard to do, there's a lot of colorless providing sources in this cube. You're able to kick it and get rid of a problematic land, which there are plenty of in this cube. Timeless Witness is up next. I chose this over Eternal Witness just because there's so much milling. So you can eternalize this thing. But Timeless Witness, of course, is a classic card to combo with Ephemerate because you can Ephemerate the Witness and then get the Ephemerate back after, like, right, you flicker something and then you flicker the Witness, and then you can also just get back any other card as well. Really strong. Ishkanah Graft Widow's in here on the mono green side. Like, yes, technically its ID is Golgari, but like the front part of this card, just the 3/5 reach that comes with 3 other reachers if you have Delirium, is game winning already. But then if you happen to be black, you can start draining your opponent for 4 every turn, which helps break stalemates. I really love Ishkanah. Very powerful card, and people should draft it more in Frank Lepore's Horror Cube. Every time that thing comes to get Magic the Gathering online, this thing always wheels. I think it wheeled 3 times. And I think one time it was really good for my Delirium deck, and I was like, chat, I'm not taking it. I'm going to let it wheel. And it wheeled. It was crazy when that happened. It was so funny. I recommend watching those VODs, by the way. The Frank Lepore Horror Cube VODs. If you scroll down a bit, those are very fun to watch. Very good cube. Altenac Thrice Called. Okay, we're up to the reanimator targets now. Altenac is the green kind of major reanimator target, mostly because it discards itself. 1 green, discard Altenac the Thrice Called, return target land from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. It's a giant 9/9 trampler, and then when they move to kill it, when it becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you draw a card. So even if your reanimation gambit fails, you still go up a card. Thorn Mammoth is here. This is a very good ramp top end. It's also just green removal. 5 green for a 6/6 trampler. Whenever it or another creature enters, it fights something. Very good card. Worldbreaker. Once again, this just deals with problematic lands that you're going to run into. It's a 5/7 reacher, which basically ends the game. You can block with it forever, and you can also swing with it forever. And then it can recur itself with colorless mana by sacrificing a land and paying 2 in a colorless, which is really strong. Worldbreaker's super grindy, and I have this weird little anime art of it where it has like huge thighs, so I decided to put it in my cube. Next up is Nissa Who Shakes It. This is a 5 mana planeswalker, 3 green. Whenever you tap a forest for mana, add an additional green. That comes up from time to time. +1. Put 3 +1/+1 counters on a land you control. Untap it. It becomes a 0/0 elemental with vigilance and haste until end of turn. That's still a land. And what that means is it works with Kotzil, and also it works with that indestructible land, the flying trample land, right? Like in Simic. So this works with the Simic land animation stuff. I had a really good land animation deck with Nissa and the Tatiova, and it was very strong. But moving on, we have Crop Rotation. Crop Rot here works really well with all the land combos, and it also turns stuff like Mortuary Mire into an instant speed play, right? Like you have all these lands that do something on enters the battlefield, and Crop Rotation making those into instants is a very interesting play pattern that I really enjoy. Crop Rot, of course, also can be tutored by the beautiful Micromancer over here to go get your land combos, which once again, we'll talk about later, I promise. Speaking of tutoring for land combos, we have Ancient Stirrings. There's a bit of an Eldrazi theme kind of cooking throughout here, but this also can get lands because lands are colorless. 1 green mana for a sorcery. Look at the top 5. You may reveal a colorless card from among them and put in your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So it's just a really deep dig. And in fact, I would actually consider this a land drop if you're building your deck. Bushwhack. Speaking of land drops, or cards you consider land drops while building your deck, Bushwhack is 1 green mana. Choose 1. Search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle. Or target creature you control fights target creature you don't control. It's a fight spell, and it's a land. Up to you. Horrific Assault is up next. 1 green mana for a sorcery. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker you don't control. If you control an Eldrazi, you gain 3 life. Sometimes you do that. It's funny, but it's also just a really good bite spell. Traverse the Uvenwald is up next. Search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put in your hand, then shuffle. And instead of being a land, if you have Delirium, it can get any land or any creature, which is ridiculously strong. Like Traverse the Uvenwald into Ishkanah is a really good play pattern. You can also traverse, once again, into land combos. Moving on, we have Life from the Loam. For 1 and a green sorcery, you can return up to 3 land cards from your graveyard to your hand, and it dredges 3, which means you can replace a draw by milling 3, and if you do, you return this from your graveyard to your hand. This is very good with Bobo. This is very good with the mill strategy, the Delirium strategy. It's also very good, of course, with stuff like Dakmore Salvage and Retrace, right? Like Life from the Loam is a super turbo grindy card. Very fun to play with. Malevolent Rumble, this is just the goat of mill spells. 1 and a green, look at the top 4. You may put a permanent from among them into your hand, put the rest in your graveyard, and then you create a colorless Eldrazi spawn. Ridiculous card. And then we have its little twin here, Scout the City. 1 and a green, choose 1. Mill 3 cards, you may put a permanent from among them into your hand, you gain 3 life, and then bring down, destroy target creature with flying. There's a lot of creatures with flying in this cube, especially in red and white, and just being able to shoot them in the head is very nice for green. But then also just, you can cycle it if you don't have a flying matchup, and then that also sets up some Delirium stuff because you mill 3 cards. Very good. Then Dreadmaw's 8, everyone. This is a playtest card that actually made me build this cube in the first place. It's why the Gruul theme is Gruul Ramp. It is X 4 green, and then you create X 6/6 green dinosaur creature tokens with trample named Colossal Dreadmaw. So it's just an X spell Colossal Dreadmaw, which is really funny. Yeah, this is like the first card I put in the cube because I just had all these unknown event cards laying around and I wanted to play with them. All right, we already went over the ramp enchantments. That's all these are. Let's move on to the lands. We have Renin 1, which is another playtest card for Mystery Booster 2. It is a 1 loyalty land planeswalker, which is good for Delirium. You can play it, +1 it. It gets tap, add green until your next turn. You can -1 it to get a squirrel. And you can -4 it to basically get a Gaia's Cradle emblem. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you add a green for each creature you control. That's what the emblem says. Very strong card, especially on turn 1. It's very annoying to play around. but it's also very vulnerable as well, right? It's a land you could attack, and that's really annoying. But God, if they get life from the loam on and you start Ren and One-ing, oh my God, it's so broken. I love this card though. Very funny card, Ren and One. Anyway, moving on to colorless here. We don't have a lot of colorless cards, but we can go through them really quickly. Dauntless Scrap Bot, Grave Hate, and Ramp. That's basically wanted by every deck. It's also just a 3/1 body. It's a pretty decent take. I would call it pretty much the most lukewarm C take in the cube you can possibly have. Then we have Emrakul the Promised End. This is the big Delirium payoff, right? It wouldn't be an Elk cube if you didn't control your opponent's turn in some way. 13/13 flying, trampler, protection from instants. When you cast the spell, gain control of target opponent during that player's next turn. After that turn, that player takes an extra turn. Brutal Magic the Gathering card. It's very good for Gruul Ramp. It's very good for Golgari Delirium. It's a super strong card. Then we have Artifacts Expedition Map. This is for tutoring land combos, which we'll talk more about soon. Mind Stone, ramp spell, but it also produces colorless for the Eldrazi that you're probably going to be running in that ramp strategy. Noble's Purse. This is for the treasure theme, but it's also good for the ramp theme. It's a 2-mana artifact. Enters tapped with 3 coin counters on it, and you can tap it and remove a coin counter from it to create a treasure token. So you can stockpile up those treasures turn after turn. And then we have Smuggler's Copter. This is very good for like Boros aggro, any aggro deck that's low to the ground that can make a little cute creatures, but it's also very good for Reanimator, right? You just like have one little guy floating around and then you can crew the copter, discard the big thing, right? Having a discard outlet is just very strong, and it just being colorless means it can go in so many decks because it's also a flying beater. Okay, great. And with that, we move on to the final bit of cards in our cube here, that being the 5-color fixing lands as well as some of the final sort of combo lands. So Thran Portal, this is just 5-color fixing. Thespian Stage, we know where this is going. We have a white border Thespian Stage here that can tap to add colorless, and you can pay 2, tap, and have it become a copy of target land, except it has this ability. Sea Gate is just fixing. I used to have Basilisk Gate, but it ended up getting cut. Multiversal Passage, when this land enters, choose a basic land type, then you may pay 2 life. If you don't, it enters tapped. This is the chosen land type, so you name mountain, it's a mountain. Hooray. Manor Gate, once again, this is just fixing now. Field of Ruin, it's fixing, but it also deals with a problematic land. Same thing with Demolition Field. And speaking of problematic lands, we have Dark Depths. Hello, Dark Depths. This is something you're not typically supposed to do in a Winston Cube, right? Dark Depths is a super hyper niche combo, but, and this is a major but, you can combo it with Shifting Woodland. You can tutor for it with all the land tutors that still work as ramp. You can still, Dark Depths, Thespian Stage is the classic, right? I just love this card so much. And long and short is, even if it is really bad in Winston, and it's going to come up maybe, I think, let's see, any card has like about a 33% chance of being open. So the chances that you open this in a Shifting Woodland or this and Dark Depths it's a 33% chance twice. Or I guess it's a 33% chance, and then there's another weird like 33%. Please, someone good at math do this, because there's like other things. And another thing I was considering was putting Mirage Mirror in the artifacts, because Mirage Mirror is just a fine card by itself. But then being able to Mirage Mirror your Dark Depths, that's a Dark Depths combo. Mirage Mirror can copy any artifact, creature, or land for 2 mana, for a 3-mana artifact. So 5 mana total for a clone until end of turn. And you can just do that on Dark Depths as well to get a Merit Lage is really strong. Cliff Gate fixing, Citadel Gate fixing, Bazooka Bog, Grave Hate. This isn't in the Blacklands category it used to be, but I need to make room for Mortuary Mire. But Bazooka Bog, any color can play, and they're pretty happy with it just being a colorless land, especially if it matters. It's a good sideboard card. Black Dragon Gate is fixing, and then Ash Barrens is like the king of all fixing. It's the 5-color land. So, yeah, that's the cube overall. I kind of want to take a second and talk about some cards maybe that didn't make the cut in the cube. So this is my buy list right now. So you can see the Diabolic Vision that's going to replace the Sneaky Snacker soon. This is for 2-headed Giant cube. I actually, after I talk about some cards that I didn't put in this Winston cube, I can talk about some of the upgrades to 2-headed Giant since my last video about it. But here's some more cards that I'm considering for 2-headed Giant cube. Mostly Sorin of House Markov, because Extort is really funny when you have 2 opponents. Because they lose 2 total, you gain 2 total, and then you swing with Sorin. That's your 3rd life gain, it flips. But then it also just kills people if you like thermonuclear bomb life gain, like with a Vitality Hunter, which is a monstrous creature. It's X, white, monstrous. X. So you put X counters on it, it has lifelink. And then you also put a lifelink counter on X target creatures you control. Or not you control, just in general. And then you swing with your teammate, and then Sorin flips, and then you minus Sorin, does damage equal to the amount of life you gain this turn to any target. So Sorin being in there for the Orzhov life gain theme. And then also it's just super easy to cast, right? It's still just a mono black card in terms of casting it, right? That's hilarious. So very excited to put that in the two-headed giant cube. Anyway, I got distracted. The main card I wanted to put in the cube, but it's just impossible to make work, is the Heron Moon. There we go. The Heron Moon. This is a legendary land, jokingly called Bright Heights versus Dark Depths. Tap, add colorless. 1, tap, exile the bottom card of target opponent's library. Whenever one or more cards an opponent owns are put into exile, put a release counter on the Heron Moon. Then if it has 13 or more release counters, sacrifice it and create a copy of Emrakul the Promised End. Cast it without paying its mana cost. So you get an Emrakul. The issue is 13 is so many, and you can't cheese this like Dark Depths. And I don't know how the hell to make my cube work around this card, even though I want it so badly, because if you've exiled 13 of your opponent's cards, you're already winning that game, right? If it's like Swords to Plowshares, like you just kill them. Secondarily, if you exile 13 cards from the library, they're just going to mill out. Like, it's just way too slow without like a proliferate theme. And I don't even really like proliferate that much as a cube theme. So it's a lot. It's a lot. I really want to make it work because I love Emrakul and I love the design of this card, but it's so difficult to make work. And like, here's the other thing too, is like, it works really well with like Thief of Sanity, right? You hit them, you exile the top 3 cards of your library, you remove, or you put a release counter on it, because even though you exiled 3 cards, it doesn't matter. Or you look at the top 3 and then you exile once, whatever, you know what I mean? It works really well with Thief of Sanity. The issue is if you hit them with Thief of Sanity 13 times, that's 26 damage. They have died. And you're not getting 13 turns in this cube. Come on, there's Flage in this cube. Let's be a little real. So just really sad that doesn't work in this cube. Anyway, I think that does it for the Winston cube. Let's move on to a little bit, I guess, to talking about my two-headed giant cube since we last looked at it a couple weeks ago. Here we go. Two-headed giant cube. If we look at the history here, there should be a blog post. Yes, we added 13 new cards here. Kythian is one of them. We already talked about Kythian earlier. At the end of turn, if Kythian and 2 other creatures attacked, it flips into Gideon. Works really funnily with your teammate, right? You swing Kythian, your teammate swings 2 creatures, Kythian still flips. Hero of Bladehold. This is very, very good. It just works by itself, right? It's a 4-mana 3/4 with Battle Cry. It makes 2 white soldiers that are tapped and attacking, so it hits for 7 effectively and leaves some bodies behind. But the Battle Cry also reaches across the table to your teammate. Baldin, Sentry, Herdmaster. This is a recommendation from my friend Christian. 4 white. As long as it's your turn, each creature, not just your own, each creature assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. And then when it attacks up to 100 target creatures, each get plus O plus X until end of turn, where X is the number of cards in your hand. So you get to pump all your teammates' creatures, all your creatures, and then hit them for a billion. Very funny. Adeline Resplendent Cathar. I did not know why I did not have this in the cube already. It is very good because you have 2 opponents. So when you attack, you get 2 humans that are tapped and attacking. Great. Guardian Scale Lord. This is a broken backup card. 4 and a white. For a 3/4, you can back up onto your creature or to a teammate's creature. You just put a counter, and then it gains all the rest of the abilities. Flying, so it gets flying. And then when it attacks, it returns a thing equal to its power or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. I've played with this card after adding it yesterday, in fact, before this video. And someone played this and then swung with their other creature and then got back like, well, actually, let's scroll down and see it. And got back Shadric Silverquill. 5-mana Orzhov flying double strike 2/5. At beginning of combat on your turn, you may choose 2. Each mode must target a different player, not you and an opponent. You can choose you and your teammate. Target player creates a 2/1 Inkling. Target player draws a card, loses their life. Target player puts a +1/+1 counter on each creature they control. So, yeah, Guardian Scale Lord's busted. Invasion of Gobekon. This is 1 and a white, and when it enters, you look at target player's hand. You may exile a card from it. They can cast it still, but it costs 2 more to cast. And then it flips when the battle is defeated into Light Shield Array. Beginning of your end step, put a +1/+1 counter in each creature that attacked this turn. You can sacrifice it to have creatures you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Very strong card. Invasion of Vryn is up next for 3 and a blue. When it enters, you draw 3 cards, then discard a card. This works really well with the Izzet discard theme because Captain Howler's in this cube. And then it flips when you defeat it into Overloaded Mage Ring. Pay 1, tap, sack it, copy target spell you control. Sudden Setback is up next. This is just a very versatile card that I kind of enjoy. 2 blue. The owner of target spell or non-land permanent puts it on top or bottom of their library. I'm actually also considering this for the Winston cube as well. Invasion of Ulgrotha, 4 and a black. It is a 5 defense counter battle. When it enters, you lightning helix something. Right, does 3 damage to any target, you gain 3 life, and then it flips into Grandmother Ravi Singir. It's a 3/3 with flying, and whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you put a counter on it, and here's the important part, you gain 1 life. Huge ups for Orzhov life gain on both sides of this card. Invasion of Ixalan is up next. It's just 1 and a green, dig 5 cards into your library. You get to put a permanent from among them into your hand, and then rest on the bottom in a random order. And then it flips into a 4/3 that whenever you cast a spell, it gains indestructible until the end of turn, and it has trample. So just kind of a good beater. Vault Plunderer is up next. This was a recommendation from the YouTube comments. Thank you so much, guys. Make sure to leave comments if you have good ideas for my cubes. Vault Plunderer is replacing Phyrexian Rager. Phyrexian Rager was originally in the cube because it's just a nice little cantripping body for black. And then your Azorious teammate can flicker it for you. But here, Vault Plunderer, when it enters, target player draws a card and loses a life. So you can do that to your teammate or to yourself or to your opponent if you have Nekazar in play or something stupid. Chandra's Incinerator. This is a stupid Magic the Gathering card. Costs X-less to cast, where X is the total amount of non-combat damage dealt to your opponents this turn. Rakdos loves doing that in this cube. Trample. Whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, it does that much damage to target creature or planeswalker that player controls. So if you have something like just a lightning bolt, for instance, you can just lightning bolt your opponent in the head and then lightning bolt their creature. Pyroglyph's in the cube now. I think it was already in the cube, but like Pyroglyph flickering that is also a removal spell that still kills them. Very brutal card. Empty the Warrens. This is just very good for Boros go wide, but you can also do some really stupid turns with like snap, and then you frantic search, and then and then you have a giant storm turn because storm also counts your teammate spells. Galvanic Relay. Storm also counts your teammate spells, so this is just a big draw spell. Exile the top card of your library during your next turn. You may play that card with Storm. Inti Shenisal of the Sun. I can't believe I missed this one. It works so well with the Izzet discard theme. And then also, whenever you attack, you don't even have to swing Inti. You can put a counter on any attacking creature, even your teammates. It gets trampled till the end of turn, and then you get a new card from exile. Invasion of Kaldheim, speaking of working with the discard theme. It's a 4 defense battle. When it enters, you exile all the cards in your hand, then draw that many cards. Until the end of your next turn, you may play cards exiled this way, and then it flips into Pyre the World Tree. Discard a land card, does 2 damage to any target, so really good with Captain Howler. And whenever you discard a land card, exile the top card of your library, you may play that card this turn. So super, super strong card when it flips. One of the battles that like will flip the most often, I think. Like this is a payoff that's worth missing 4 damage. Mishra's Command is up next. This was also a recommendation from YouTube comments. Thank you very much. X and a red, choose 2. Choose target player. They may discard up to X cards. Then they may draw a card for each card discarded this way. Works with the discard theme. Does X damage to target creature. Removal's good. Does X damage to target planeswalker. That's just very good. And then target creature gets +X/+0 and gains haste until end turn. Target creature, not just your own. You can do that on your teammate's creature. Very funny. It's also really good with stuff like, of course, in the cube, there's the stupid Kieran, the Jeskai one that makes each spell cost 1 less for each target for you, and then your opponents, they cost 1 more for each target. I cannot remember the name of that card for the life of me, and I don't want to click on the list. There's Pyroglyph. Hello, Pyroglyph. Does damage equal to its power to any target, basically, because there's no other glyphs in the cube. Works funnily with Saw in Half, though. Ephemerate. Clones. Invasion of Zendikar. It's a ramp spell for 3 and a green, and then it flips into a silly little land. This is probably one of the best invasions on the front half. Just ramp for 2 is very worthwhile, and then it flips into a 4/4 Vigilance Haste. That's a land. Scythis, the Harvest Hand. I had Satyr Enchanter in the cube, which is just this for 1 more mana. Right, whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you draw a card. But this one is not only 1 less mana, but it's an enchantment, and it also gains you 1 life when you cast an enchantment, which works with your Orzhov life gain teammate or what have you. Shadrix, we already talked about. Xoralin's in here. Speaking of Orzhov life gain, this is a very good payoff for Orzhov life gain. 1 white-black. Whenever a bat you control attacks, aka like Zoralin, I think it's the only bat in the cube besides Deep Cavern, you gain 1 life. And Flying Vigilance 3/3. When it enters or attacks as well, you may pay white, black, and 2 life. If you do, you return a permanent with mana value 3 or less that's non-land. And it has a finality counter. So you get to bring back little dorks that you were attacking with earlier. Lastly, we have the funniest edition, Mogus, God of Slaughter. With 2 opponents at the same time with the same life total, this gets really funny. 2 black-red for 7/5. Do you sack a creature or do you take 2? Times 2 because there's 2 opponents that take their turn together with the same life total. So they're losing 4 life every turn if they're not sacrificing creatures, which is a serious clock. Vial Smasher came out to make room for that, mostly because A, I want Vial Smasher for a deck and I can't find another copy of it, and 2, Vial Smasher was actually kind of teetering on too strong. I think Mogus is also going to be very strong and very annoying, but it at least puts a clock on games where sometimes games can run really long into it, a giant, so I'm happy that Mogus puts a better clock than File Smasher. Wow, we're done. That does it. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I'm really glad you all enjoyed the first one. I hope you enjoyed this one as well, even though it was a much shorter cube. Yeah, but hopefully I get a bunch of good ideas from comments too that I can harvest as well. Anyway, bye. Thanks for watching.